Now, we've looked at the Marsha Thompson case, which clearly was different than Sarah's. I mean, you could tell this woman had been through hell and back.
Prior to August 9th, 2019, had you ever defended yourself with Terry Thompson?
No.
Ever fight back in any way?
No.
Even when he abused your children, did you fight back?
No.
Why not?
He had told me he would hurt me if I intervened between him and the kids when he was disciplining them or when he was hurting Micah. He told me I would be next.
And the fact that they even put the two in the same comparison is just horrible. It's just such a disgrace and disregard to batter spouse, men and women all over the world. So Palm Beach Post did this article. A South Florida woman killed her abusive husband. Does she belong in prison? Now, this was written about Marsha Thompson's case. Prosecutors said Marsha Thompson had every reason to want her husband dead. Marsha Thompson stood encircled by her family, their eyes closed and hands up. She was praying in the courtroom on trial for killing her husband, a charge she has never denied. But there were extenuating circumstances per her attorneys, and killing someone is not always the same as committing murder. Before I go further, let me tell you guys that she was on trial. If you have not seen that video that we did about Marsha Thompson, she was found not guilty. Terry Thompson would have killed his wife, Marsha Thompson, had she not beaten him to it. Made to defend herself first from her abusive husband, then again from the legal fallout of killing him, Marsha Thompson faced a lifetime in prison if jurors didn't believe her. But they did. The jury acquitted Marsha Thompson on first-degree murder. It only took them one afternoon to deliberate, and their decision followed undisputed emotional testimony about a husband who beat his wife relentlessly, who threatened to kill her and her family if they ever called the police, and who called her worthless up to the moment she killed him. Few facts were in dispute during the months in trial. Marsha Thompson was 44 years old. She was a U.S. Customs agent. She was the first to admit she shot her husband while he lay unarmed on the living room couch on August the 9th of 2019. Prosecutors conceded that years of physical and sexual violence predated the shooting. The question for jurors was her state of mind when she killed him. Assistant State Attorney Joe Walensky suggested Marsha Thompson was fed up with the constant abuse she endured at their home. Rather than report her husband to police and file for divorce, the prosecutor said she took matters into her own hands. The problem is that the law enforcement's hands are tied when it comes to what they can do to protect the abused. It's also ironic that in the case of Sarah Boone, she abused law enforcement assistants with what she did. It says Terry Thompson should have been prosecuted, not executed, per the prosecution. Florida's self-defense law permits the use of lethal force in response to an immediate threat. Now, this is where it's so key for us to understand these types of laws when it comes to Sarah Boone's case. Florida's self-defense law permits the use of lethal force in response to an immediate threat to life. Immediate threat to life. But the prosecution maintained that there was none in Marsha Thompson's case. Do you guys think there was any in Sarah's? She didn't say that there was to police. Terry Thompson lay in his underwear with his feet propped up, his arms upraised to shield himself when his wife shot him 3 times with her service-issued handgun. He rolled off the couch and lay face down on the ground. She shot him 6 more times in the back. She knows what imminent danger looks like because she's lived through it, said the prosecution. This was not it. So their whole claim is because he was laying on the couch, not hurting her at the time that she shot him, that was the big deal of it all. It's okay that he beat the hell out of her every other time, but he wasn't doing it right then and there, so she didn't have the right to shoot him, and that's where the law comes in, and it's a little gray, apparently, especially after this case. Marsha Thompson said her husband promised to kill her in the minutes leading up to the shooting, but it wasn't enough to say he would do so. The prosecutor urged jurors to consider the difference between a verbal threat to kill and an actual attempt. And I think this is where the jury did completely 100% get it right. That if someone's going to beat you, I mean, this guy did a lot. This guy, the abuse that she endured, you guys, we haven't gone into it all. He tortured her. He did some depraved things on her, sexually, physically. But even though he'd done all those things prior to that, even though all that was still there, all that had happened, the prosecution wanted the jury to think that just because he says he's going to kill her doesn't mean he's going to kill her. Marsha Thompson's attorney, Ms. Shawley, called upon forensic psychologist Michael Brannon. Yes, I've told you this in the past. Michael Brannon testified in this case. Brannon testified that a battered woman's experiences affect her perception of imminent danger. Victims of repeat violence may fear death in a situation others would not. For those of you who didn't pick up on the name drop that I just did, he's the one that they're currently trying to schedule a deposition with in Sarah Boone's case. The defense also told the jurors not to put too much credence in the fact that Terry Thompson was unarmed. His wife didn't know it at the time. That's a good point. So Terry Thompson kept a gun in the closet, and he had a golf club in the living room, a machete by the bed, and knives hidden throughout the house, sometimes in between the couch cushions where he lay the morning he died. That could have been it right there. That was the downfall in this. Crime scene investigators said they found no weapons hidden within Terry Thompson's reach, but he didn't need one to kill his wife. He demonstrated time and again that his hands alone could do the job. Now, this goes into what the psychologists say abuse victims are at great... Oh, you know what? Since I'm talking about this stuff, let me put this banner up, you guys. Psychologists say abusive victims are at greater risk of violence when they leave the relationship. This is true. This is very true. Marsha Thompson testified that she met Terry Thompson at the University of Florida in 2000 when she was only 20 years old. They dated for several years before marrying and having 2 children. He was 13 years older than her and very charming. Her testimony, if you guys have not watched her testimony, at the end of this video, I will attach that video where we watched that because I want y'all to see the difference between her demeanor and what we know Sarah's demeanor is going to be. Well, wait, I take that back. Who are we going to see on the stand when we see Sarah? Are we going to see the Sarah that we know? Like the true Sarah, like the one that writes the letters to the judge and the attorneys telling them how stupid they are? Or are we going to see that Sarah that was in that one video, that one time where we saw that little personality of hers come out where she's telling the cop in 2019, she tried to get away. She just couldn't do it. She's fed up. She's tired of getting hit. Where she truly does look like a victim. But because we all know Sarah and we're very familiar with how she reacts and how she acts, we all saw through that. But the jury's not going to have that kind of knowledge on the case. So yeah, to watch the 2 of these women, the difference between the 2, it's night and day. It says that his affection soon turned to jealousy. Terry Thompson, who is not alive to dispute the allegations, prosecutors reminded the jurors, began insisting his wife kept her phone on her at all times of the day. Missing calls and unanswered text incensed him, ever paranoid that his wife was seeing someone else. Which, by the way, you guys, we found out in trial that he was seeing tons of other people. Marsha Thompson said he controlled what she wore, where she worked, who she saw. He reminded her often that she wasn't a good enough mother, a hard enough worker, a pretty enough wife. Her hair was wrong, and so were her clothes. In 2007, he accused his wife of cheating on him. Marsha Thompson said that in a fit of rage, he pushed, punched, and choked her before forcing himself on her with a lotion bottle. During another incident, he dragged his wife down the street by her hair while she held their baby in her arms, prompting passerbys to call police. A relative of Marsha Thompson's testified that she once looked like she'd gone through several rounds of boxing. Terry Thompson followed each violent outburst with an apology. His wife forgave him every time. And when asked why Marsha Thompson didn't leave her husband, Brannon said, "Women who leave their abusers are at greater risk of violence than those who stay." A tearful Marsha Thompson told jurors that she didn't believe she could end the relationship and survive. So I guess Dr. Brandon is going to get up on the stand and say, well, Sarah felt like she was pinned against a wall. You know, he wouldn't go away. He wouldn't leave her alone. They're going to use that. Remember that one piece in the interrogation with Sarah in the Orange County Sheriff's Office where she talked about how she needed space and George wouldn't give it to her. And even as he would drive by on his way to work, he'd stop and lean over the fence and say good morning to her while she was having her morning coffee. I guarantee you, they're going to dial in on that little piece of the interrogation. And they're going to milk that for everything it's worth. But again, it's what Sarah's saying happened. It's not what really happened. And even if you want to say, you don't know what happened, Carrie. Okay, you're right. I don't know exactly what happened because all we're hearing from is Sarah, who we know is a liar, who's been proven to be a liar. We don't have anything from George except what we saw from police reports. And then, of course, there's the in-between of what the actual truth really is for everybody. She said, I thought maybe it's better if I die and this is all over. But then I worried about the kids. I said, I can't do that to them. I have to try to protect them too. She was so emotional in the stand. I mean, it was so clear that this woman wasn't faking anything, you guys. It was so sad. I don't think they said this in this article, but he was her first and only boyfriend type. This is the only man she ever knew, really. She didn't have a lot of self-confidence before she met him. During prosecutors' last opportunity to address the jury, the ASA, Karen Black, emphasized the premeditated element of the first-degree murder charge. Marsha Thompson spent 15 minutes in her room getting ready for work, listening to her husband berate her from the living room before she rejoined him and shot him to death. The prosecutor urged jurors to time out those 15 minutes in the deliberation room and consider exactly how long Marsha Thompson had to make that decision, which I think is absolutely just ridiculous of a statement when you look at all the years of the abuse that she went through. And then, of course, Dr. Brandon. Someone with battered spouse syndrome can still commit first-degree murder. The victim can still commit first-degree murder. That's what she did here. She committed first-degree murder. Now, what was really sad and just horrible was when we watched the ex-girlfriend get up and talk. Her name was Benton. And she pretty much said he did the same thing to her that he was doing to Marsha. I guess she did finally get to speak in front of the jury, apparently. She wasn't allowed to testify, so the jury never saw her. The judge did, though. Now, had she been allowed to testify, Benton said she would have described the first time Terry Thompson punched her hard enough to leave 2 black eyes, and the time he dragged her through her home by her hair, chunks of it spooling in the shower drain afterwards, and the time he squeezed her with so much pressure it left the bruises of 4 handprints down her arm. Benton, the girlfriend, said that he alienated her from her friends and colleagues who saw him only as a charming, well-groomed, and church-going man. So let's look again at the differences between this case and Sarah's case. There's a third party involved here that has seen firsthand, has experienced firsthand the abuse of this person. We don't have that in Sarah's case. As I stated earlier, he had no record before he got involved with Sarah. So explain that one away, James Owens. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please do not forget to like and subscribe on your way out, and feel free to leave a comment. Have a blessed day.